spend some time with the dead.
On demand almost. We'd be like, hey, can you like touch the duck or make it go off? And it would just start lighting up and going crazy.
Why should we be afraid of you?
Hello and welcome to What Goes Bump Tonight. My name is Riley Clark, and alongside me, as always, is
Trevor Jensen.
And today, our special guest is Mark Smith.
Ow, ow.
Hey. Thanks for having me.
I thank you
Yeah.
for giving us your time because I know you are a busy man.
Sometimes. But it's my pleasure.
So it is a little bit different for all the listeners that are here in the chat and everything right now. Mark is actually a photographer, not of the paranormal, but of the living variety.
Right.
Way to say that.
Correct. Mostly wildlife stuff.
Yep. So I'm pretty sure I was looking at like IMDb and stuff like that. Have you worked with like National Geographic and done, like the whole like Diddy and whatnot?
No, actually, if there is a Mark Smith, that's a different Mark Smith that's listed.
Interesting. That's what I was wondering too, because I was
Yeah.
like, there was 3 or 4 of them, and I was like, it would make sense if he did work for National Geographic, being a wildlife photographer, but I don't know.
Yeah, no. It is interesting having to battle the common name of Mark Smith, but
Yeah.
I've been able to kind of break free of that now. So most of the stuff is relevant, most of it. But there's a couple of other Mark Smith photographers out there as well. But
Yeah.
say hi to the fellow Mark Smith photographers if they're watching.
So where did you get your start in all this?
I've been taking photos basically my whole life. But I went through a period of time where like photography wasn't cool, like when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I was a really small guy in high school. I didn't actually have my growth spurt until almost after high school. So I was already picked on pretty heavily. So to carry a camera around probably wouldn't have been the best thing in the world.
Yeah, where it's like, let's get stuffed in a locker today.
Yeah, no, not at all. But music was a big thing for me. So I deep dove into music and learned how to play guitar, and then took photos along the way, the whole time, and then did some traveling. And when I did the traveling, really fell in love with photography again, and then started doing YouTube in 2017 at the request of my son. Actually, it was his idea to kind of do what I do on YouTube. And
I love that. Awesome.
Yeah, the rest is kind of history. I would come home after photographing all these birds and kind of sit him down and show him what had happened and tell him kind of the story of what it was. He's like, Dad, you got to make YouTube videos of this and put them on YouTube. And I was convinced that nobody would care. But he said, no, these are amazing. So I did one and it kind of took off and, just went from there. But it was interesting because I had this period of time where I traveled, and I moved from my home state of Florida, traveled in an RV for about 9 months with my entire family, which was a crazy trip in and of itself. And something
I can only imagine.
Everybody do. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And we ended up in Colorado and spent about 3 years there. And then when I came back to Florida, it was like I had a fresh set of eyes on everything that I knew so well and had so much experience with.
Yeah.
That I thought was kind of normal. Like I've spent a lot of time outside and had a lot of really weird interactions with animals, and I learned over time that a lot of these interactions I had weren't commonplace. So
right.
So I don't know, just started doing the stuff on YouTube and it kind of went crazy. So
yeah, I will say one thing I noticed about your YouTube videos is you're a great like storyteller of what you saw that day and what you photographed, which I love because.
And it's breathtaking work. Like it is awe-inspiring. Because
just like us, every day is a different episode for these animals. They never know what they're gonna encounter, what's gonna happen to them. They could face life or death that day.
Yeah, it's on a dime every day.
Yeah, and many times they do. I mean, it's a constant struggle, and tuning into it can be very humbling and make you realize just how easy you might have it, even if you're having a really bad day. You can see kind of the struggles they go through. I don't have it that bad. Maybe my AC not working today is not that big a deal.
Yeah.
At least I have some
things in
food,
perspective.
Yeah, exactly. it can be very helpful in that regard.
And I think sometimes too, people, a lot of people live in big cities and stuff, so they don't get a chance to maybe experience, this wildlife firsthand and get to see how animals are on a day-to-day basis. So having
Oh,
people like you out there that document these things and put them out there for the world to see is like awesome. Like I was a big Animal Planet person, like growing up as a
Yeah,
kid.
me too.
I had National Geographic coming to my house every month. I had every single animal book you could ever imagine.
The Earth
Yeah.
itself is just incredible. Like the
Sure.
amount of like like when you go to different regions of the world and you see the different types of animals that inhabit those places, it's like, oh my, like that's a thing? Like, what is this?
Yeah, yeah. And then like if you can get in the middle of some of these, like,
Oh no!
Oh no, we lost him. He'll be
He's
back.
to see when that kind of stuff happens.
Mhm.
Like there's a place we go in Canada every summer where they have this natural phenomenon that I don't think it happens anywhere else on the planet. And I can describe it as much as I want. I can tell you about it, but until you put somebody in the middle of it, you really, you don't experience it until you're there. But it's interesting. There's they have a really strong tidal surge there. The tide comes in with like a 14-foot surge.
Wow.
And,
Whoa.
yeah, and it's not like you would think it is. You feel more like you're on a river. It's like because it's flat, but it comes in through this like narrow area, and they actually call it the flood. It comes in so strong, and what happens? It comes into this deep channel of water that's about 1,000 feet deep, and at this time of year, there's a school of fish called hake that are migrating through this deep channel of water, and they get stuck in these upwells, and they get rushed to the surface, and they get barotrauma, or we would call it the bends in humans, but basically the air inside of them expands, and their air bladder, which keeps them like neutrally buoyant under the surface, fills up, and they get stuck on the surface of the water. And there are bald eagles there waiting for them, and the bald eagles at times they can be in the numbers of 300 or 400 at once, and
wow,
you're kind of in the, it's really hard to put it into perspective until you're there. But there's an island where all these eagles sit, and the moment the first fish pops up, one eagle jumps off, and then they're everywhere. It's like the only thing I can really relate it to is if you've ever been to the beach and somebody's been feeding gulls and they throw like a handful of popcorn and suddenly gulls descend upon them. It's like that, but they're bald eagles, and some of them have wingspans like as wide as 8 feet. So to be in the middle of this, and they're coming in at 50 miles an hour from every direction, and it's
with like 2-inch blades too, and like it's
daggers on their face.
Yeah, and they literally disregard you. Like you have to do it all from a boat, but I've been hanging out of the boat trying to video one, and suddenly I realize he's coming, he's really close. Oh shit, I gotta move, and if I don't move, he's gonna run into me. They like,
damn, that hyper focus.
It's intense to watch, but that's what I was trying to say is like some of these moments to be like thrust into the middle of them. It's hard to believe, really, really hard to believe, but really cool at the same time.
Yeah, it honestly sounds like something straight out of a movie, because it's like where else are you going to experience that other than going and doing that stuff? Like granted, YouTube it does its diligence, but like you won't understand that feeling until you're out there.
Yeah, and the eagle behavior there too is really unique. The fish are somewhat small, and a lot of times there's so many of them, the eagles will come down, they'll grab the fish, and then as they're flying up, they'll stuff the fish down their throat whole and swallow it whole.
Holy
and then
shit.
Come down and grab another one. And it's feast or famine. And towards the end of one of these frenzies, it's not unusual to see an eagle kind of open its mouth to shove a fish in, and a fish that just swallowed fall out because they just have so many stuffed in their throat.
They just indulge.
That's
they have to, because it's a tidal surge, and they understand it's feast or famine, and there's no organization to it at all. They come from every direction, and a lot of times they crash into each other and get in, end up in the water, and the water's about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So they don't, like, if they stay in the water for a little, for a long time, they're not going to survive. So, but that's another weird thing about doing all of this in wildlife photography is not like interfering with that natural process. As hard as it is,
I can understand.
Two eagles like collide, and that, they might not make it. That's just kind of part of the process there. And that's, you got to kind of let it go. So
yeah, like your conscience wants to go pick them up and like get them out of the water, but at the same time, it's like this is natural. Like this is
yeah,
completely natural.
exactly. Yeah, it's not like it got tangled in fishing line, and
Yep.
it's the cause of a human where you can try to help it. This is totally natural. It's part of the process, and you just gotta like kind of let it go, and that's hard to do sometimes.
I bet.
Especially when it's something small and cute that's getting taken by another animal. A lot of people have a hard time with it.
Right. If like say you're filming like a fox or something like devouring a rabbit, like that's
It's
just
like the
that's just
rabbit.
that's
Yeah.
it happens. Like it just does. Like there's nothing you can
Yeah.
do about it. You have
Well,
to let the fox eat.
yeah, I saw something this summer. There's a place in Washington State where there's islands where they brought rabbits in. The rabbits did what rabbits do, got out of control.
Yep.
So they brought
Populated.
foxes into the island to control the rabbits. And now the the eagles come in and take the foxes. But it's not unusual to see a fox with a rabbit and then an eagle come try to steal the rabbit from the fox. That's crazy to watch. Really crazy.
That's
That
so
sounds
wild,
insane.
dude.
Yeah, it's like a
That's
whole different
you don't even
whole
think of
different
that type of
level.
competition. Like it's real. It's that real. Like life or death is
Yeah.
that real to animals.
I
Like
mean, like, think about it, man. Like, eagles are apex predators. Like,
they don't fear nothing.
how often
Yeah.
would you say that when you go out and do these wildlife shoots that like you're in situations where it's almost dangerous?
Ooh, I try to minimize the dangers
Yeah.
as much as
Fair.
possible. But I mean, there's always a possibility.
Yeah, there's always the element.
Yeah, I would say the one with the eagles is probably for me the most dangerous, but not
Mhm.
because of the eagles, but because of the turbulent water. It's
Yeah.
I think the second deadliest ocean rapids in the world. So you
Wow.
have to have a
Yeah.
lot of faith in your guide and your boat
Mhm.
guys, and I do. They know what they're doing, and they keep us in a safe spot. But to see it, it's a different story to be out there on the water. It can be a little stressful sometimes.
Yeah.
But like, as far as the animals, like I tend to stay away from like the larger predatory animals if I can.
Right.
Just I don't
Yeah,
want to be
unless
a
you happen to just
Yeah.
run into them.
yeah, being a Floridian, born and raised, uh, alligators are like here everywhere, and when I have a lot of people come down here, they'll do like workshops with me. You kind of have to tell them a little bit of alligator rules, but these are things
Yeah.
that I've lived with. So to me, that's just like common sense.
Yeah, where
But
it's
I
like, just
understand.
don't go in there, dog.
Yeah, yeah, and I understand, but people that have never been around alligators might not understand. There's just a
Mhm.
few things you don't do. So I have
Right.
to kind of educate them on all of that stuff and hope for the best. But we haven't lost anybody yet, so no
Thank
worries.
God.
What would you say is your favorite animal to photography? Take pictures of.
Uh,
To photography.
yeah, I'd say the ospreys.
That's
Yeah, they're amazing at what they do. They come from the air and dive into the water and oftentimes pull fish out bigger than themselves and fly away with them. And I've thought about this a lot because it's weird. It's easy to be kind of a speciesist in this regard. Like I can see an osprey fly away with a fish, and I'm like, oh my god, that was amazing. And I don't really think about the poor fish. And
Right.
a lot of people do, and I mean, I do in the same. I'm like, oh, that sucks to be the fish, but then I try to wrap it in a different way. Maybe, just
I
maybe,
eat fish.
yeah. Well, but maybe to the fish, this is like ascending to the higher level of their
Ooh.
next plane of existence. Maybe they're like if you've seen Toy Story when the little guys
Yeah.
were taken out of the crane machine. Maybe the fish is like, we've been chosen, and they and and they're happily being flown away to some other dimension. And if you think about it too, I'm trying to think who I heard describe this once. I think it was Neil deGrasse Tyson was trying to
Yeah.
describe different dimensions. So to a fish, I don't know. I don't think they're all that aware of what's happening outside of the water, like say if you're in the ocean. So
Right.
suddenly they get ripped out of their element and thrust into a different dimension by some creature they might not even know ever existed. To
Yeah.
think about it that way is
Huh.
kind of interesting.
That is
It makes me
wild to
think,
think.
yeah, I was photographing these tiny little aphids one day on a flower. I mean, they're like the size of a needle, the tip of a needle. And
Mhm.
as I'm watching these tiny little insects on this flower, I realized they had no concept of my existence around them, at least that I could tell. You know, there was no signs that they even knew that I was there.
Yeah.
And as I'm photographing these, I started to wonder, well, what's like behind me watching me that I'm not even aware of, you know? So I kind of looked,
when does that like chain stop?
yeah, right, exactly. I mean, so I don't know, there's interesting concepts to all of that, like that I don't know, you could say some of it might be supernatural, but
we're probably granular on the whole grand scheme of things anyway. Like we have
right,
to be just smallest dust particles.
sure, yeah.
In the
Like
grand scheme of things, we are.
yeah. Which movie was that? Was that Men in Black that was like the water droplet, or was that War of the Worlds? I think it was War of the Worlds, where they
might have been
panned
War of the
out
Worlds.
water. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me.
That is an interesting thought, though. I never thought about, like, from the, like, animal's point of mind, like, what are they thinking? Because, like, if there are animals like deer are, depending on their living environment, are conscious of humans. And
Sure.
most of them, if they're not city deer, are gonna relate humans with danger.
But does a tick living on a deer think, oh, there's a whole world outside of this deer? And then the microbes that are living on the tick know that there's a tick on a deer living on a planet.
Right, yeah.
It's so fucking wild to me.
Interesting stuff for sure.
So what's the farthest that you've traveled before to do some photographies?
I would say probably the place that we go in Canada. Just and that doesn't sound far, but I think distance-wise, I think it's the furthest.
Yeah.
Or no, maybe Africa. I've done Africa too. I think it would be close tied to the distance. The trip to Africa is interesting. You got to do a lot of different flights.
I bet a lot of
like fly for almost. Yeah, you fly for like a day, and then you have jet lag of like 7 hours, and it's kind of hard to adjust. But Africa is definitely a trip that I think everybody should take at least once in their life. It's you see all these animals on television, and like you're saying, you saw them in the magazines and stuff, but to actually be in like the same space as them is a completely different story. They're all way different looking and bigger than you would think.
Right.
100%.
And when I went, we saw a lion, a pair of female lions on a kill, and that's like I've seen that on television, you know, and documentaries countless times, and it's hard to watch, but I can tell you, like, to see that in person is absolutely horrific. It's one of the most horrific things I've ever experienced, and
I'm sure it's super
loud.
graphic.
It is, and it's loud. The lion roar. It's like it sounds like it's on a PA system. I mean, trees are breaking, and whatever they're catching is screaming. And the death process is not fast. It's a slow 25-minute ordeal. And it's interesting, the guides in Africa, it's actually a rare thing to see lions take something. It doesn't happen a lot. So when it does, they're really proud, and they want to share the moment with like all of their clients. So they literally drive right on top of them. I mean, you're like 10 feet from this lion that's like in the middle of like just like you can see it in his eyes. It's like glazed over.
Yeah, where it's like, this is food.
Lions.
Yeah, and it's scary, but it's humbling too, because you know, you see like it was a good lesson for me. When we saw it happen, I even said to the guide, I was like, hey, like we're a little too close, and this is kind of uncomfortable. And he's like, no, you just got to watch. You have to see the whole process, and part of it is
full circle.
Yeah, part of it is the, you know, the graphic death of this animal. And he said, just wait. So we waited, and you know, they finally killed this creature. It's like kind of like a giant elk. It was called a kudu. Yeah. And they disappeared, and they came back with the cubs, and you know, the cubs come bounding in, and the guy's like, you like the cubs, right? And I was like, oh yeah, everybody likes the cubs. And he goes, well, then you have to understand and appreciate this. This is what feeds them. And if you want these cubs to be here, you have to understand this is the process. And I was like, you're right. You know, so it was hardcore though. I tell you, I've never experienced anything like that.
Yeah, it's probably not for the faint of heart, for real.
No, not at all. Not at all. But definitely a good experience too.
Yeah, I think it's always like, especially like paranormal too. We always tell everybody like it's worth trying at least once. And it's like you should definitely go out and experience these things at least one time so you have your own opinion about it.
Sure. Definitely. We I go all over the place, and we see some interesting stuff. And I had a client, their husband and wife in Colorado, and they ended up becoming really good friends. And I tell a lot of people this story because it's funny and supernatural, like to the core, and
Yeah.
just weird at the same time. So it was a husband and wife. The husband doesn't believe in ghosts or spirits or anything like that. Just they flatline, nothing.
Yep.
No, that just is not a thing. The wife is the opposite. She's all into it. She's spiritual. She there's ghosts, all of this stuff. So she says she wants to see some ghost towns. So perfect. We know some great ghost towns up high in the mountains, and my son is a wealth of knowledge on this stuff because he loves the supernatural.
Oh
So
yeah.
we go to this one tiny ghost town. I think you got to take a really crazy mountain road to get up there. That's really sketchy just to get there.
Oh yeah.
And the town is called Ironton, and there's still all of the buildings exist to this day. And the mysterious part about some of these towns is they were inhabited and then one day they weren't. And there's not really any record as to why they were abandoned or any stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it's kind of weird. So it's interesting to note too that in Colorado in the summer, it rarely ever rains. So we get to this ghost town and it just starts pouring. And I mean, lightning, hardcore. And I'm like, let's seek shelter inside one of the ghost town buildings. Like there's this prominent whitewashed building in the middle of the place.
Heck yeah.
Let's just go in there. So we go in there, and of course there's no power or anything because there's no power to these places. So you're in this old house that's like abandoned. And I was like, well, while we're here, we might as well explore. It's raining, and it's like the perfect set for a horror movie. The rain and the lightning flashing occasionally so you can see inside the house. And the first place we go is this side room. And at the time I had a tiny little flip phone. I don't even think we had like decent phones back then, with a tiny flashlight. And as I'm going in the back room, the wife is kind of behind me on this side, and my son is behind me on this side. And I can see something on the other side of the room that's like shiny and gelatinous. And I'm like, well, what the hell is that? And I'm drawn to this, whatever it is on this wall. And as we're getting closer and closer, the woman next to me, she's going, I think we should turn around. I think we should turn around. Let's not go. Yeah, let's stop. And then my son is doing the same thing. And I'm just compelled to get closer and closer. And as we get closer and closer, I can see the wall has like a built-in cupboard that was still there. Like it was part of the wall system. And there's like this black, almost like shiny gel, like just pouring out of the cupboard. And I'm looking at it going, oh my God, what the hell is that? But I'm still compelled like to reach up, and I got to open this cupboard. So they're still like, it was like an episode of Scooby-Doo. Like they're both behind me going, no, no. And I'm going, yes, yes. And I reach up and I open this cupboard, and all of this like black goo just goes pouring out all over the floor. And I look back at both of them, and the husband, who is non-believer, has never come in the room, and he's standing in the doorway, and I can just see a silhouette, and I hear him go, I think we should leave now. He was like, he'd had enough, right? So I was like, I think so. I don't know what this is. I can't scientifically explain it. Like my brain at this point is like, I don't know what this is. It's time to leave. So we leave, and we end up like having to come down this mountain. And as we're coming down the mountain, I look over to the right, and the entire right side of the mountain shifts and starts to come down as a mudslide. And the mudslide is running parallel to us, but maybe 10 feet behind us. And these two people that I'm with have no idea that this mudslide is coming.
Oh my God.
I'm trying to outrun it going down this stupid road, and the mudslide passes behind us, blocks the entire road for like 5 hours, and we just barely made it out of there. But the weird thing was my son and I were so like enamored with this experience. We're like, we got to go back to Ironton, like when they clear the road. So we went back like a week later, sunny day, all lit up, went into that same room. There was nothing. There's not one sign of any kind of black goo. We went and opened the cupboard and the cabinet. There was nothing in it. And him and I are like, we don't know what the hell that was.
Yeah, nobody would have went and cleaned that up either.
I don't know what they would
clean up anything.
I don't know how they would have. It was a lot of stuff that came out of this cabinet.
Was it like a thicker, like syrupy looking, like viscous liquid too, or was it like flowing like actual water?
No, it was thick. It was like slimy. Yeah, and it was so black, but it had like a sheen to it, like oily into it. So yeah, it was
wild.
Like, it was very weird. So that was my supernatural experience in photography. I think the only one that I can recall.
Yeah. No,
But it was
that's really interesting.
pretty intense, yeah.
It sounds super
Yeah, and
intense.
especially with the weather being the way it was too, where it's like that's an oddity in itself. But like we have a theory where it's like lightning and certain weather patterns or certain, forecasts that just have a tendency to like help the spiritual pressures or like the energy
Yeah,
levels.
some of the craziest nights we've had paranormal investigating were because of thunderstorms.
Yeah, or we
Because
had
Sure.
heat lightning that
like
night and it was like, why is all this happening just
because
today?
like the most common theory in the paranormal world is that it's electrical magnetic energy. So like lightning would just create more of that
Mm,
in the atmosphere already. So it makes sense that if there were spirits that use that to harvest it to manifest or whatever, like
Sure.
storms should be like that perfect.
agreed.
Yeah, plus it just makes it for a really cool mood too.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. When you got the only light is the light from the lightning. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
Yeah,
pretty
fucking
fucking
activities that you
sweet.
just
yeah.
It's a little
Yeah.
You got
spooky.
black masses coming out of cabinets. Oh
It's
no.
cool.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
So
kind
how
of creepy.
long do you spend out in the woods when you do these shoots and whatnot?
That varies too. Like,
Yeah.
so if I go here at home, I just go for like the morning or up
Yeah.
until noon and come back. But some of these things are a week at a time, maybe longer. It just depends on the location and like if it's a group setting, how long is comfortable and how long will give them the right amount of time to get whatever it is we're trying to find.
Right.
The last group we did was in Costa Rica. We did two groups, and each group I think was 8 days. 2 days of travel and then 5 days of steady, you know I would say almost 12-hour a day,
Yeah.
going out and taking photographs and stuff. So
Yeah,
it
full
just it's
excursion.
yeah, it just depends on like where you are. Like the place in Canada, that's a 5-day adventure. You show up on a Monday and leave on a Friday, and you have to fly in on a tiny little plane that literally lands on the water and flies right up to the lodge,
Mm.
and then you just go with the tides to get that what they call the Eagle Show. So, but it can be tiring too for people. 5 or 6 days of that for 12 hours can be a lot. Always worth it though.
What would you say that your like favorite American location would be to go and photograph?
Besides Florida, I would say the Pacific Northwest.
Oh,
Anywhere.
I can see that for sure
For
with the
sure.
mountains and everything.
Yeah, it's beautiful over there. I'm particularly fond of like the Seattle area and outside of Seattle. Um, just something about if you've never been to the city of Seattle, it's actually really cool. Everybody's very expressive and alternative and not
Mm.
afraid of what people might think of them if they have a piercing or pink hair.
Right.
It's kind of cool to see that mentality of and freedom of speech out there. So very
Yeah.
alternative place and good music too. I'm a big music fan. So
Heck
Oh,
yeah.
hell yeah. Seattle's got a great music scene for sure.
What's your favorite band?
oh, that varies honestly day to day.
Heck yeah.
Oh man, I don't know that would take a little bit of time.
What's your vibe
What's right
today?
now? Yeah,
What's been the
what's
vibe
today's
today?
vibe?
What's today's vibe?
Well, today's vibe was like all heavy stuff. like
All right.
like from Slipknot to Chevelle.
Yep.
Oh, let's go. Yeah.
Yeah. Today was more of an aggressive day.
About that.
Aggressive
Sure.
Wednesdays. I like it.
Yeah. I
Gotta
mean,
get
but
through the hump somehow.
I also like some of the more mellow stuff, and I can't think of any of the people's names. Like Spotify has been for me, it's been such a, I don't know, a game changer for music because it's good at suggesting things that I like.
Yeah, I've
And
noticed that it's been really good for me about it too.
Yeah, I've seen my music like
yeah,
tastes change over the past few years of using Spotify just because
Oh
I'm getting
yeah.
shown new artists that I would never even known existed, which is awesome.
My
yeah,
library consists of like bluegrass, rap,
Yeah, I'm
EDM,
all over the map.
like country, like everything, every type of music I've touched.
yeah, same. Yeah. I think it's cool too, like with Spotify, how it will give you kind of a recap of your year, and it's always surprising. It's
Mm.
like, oh, I didn't realize I listened to this that much. to go from year
Exactly.
to year. I've been using Spotify for like I think 4 years now, so it's like it's a neat little time capsule to see all of these different
Right.
things that you listened to at the time. So
Yeah, you can see the evolution of where you were from there to here.
yeah. I'm not much into bluegrass, but there is a band I like that I think is bluegrass, but I don't know if they consider themselves that. But the band's name is Poor Man's Poison.
Yeah.
They're very good. They got kind of like a hard edge, and I don't know, to their music. It's really cool.
There's something about a banjo that always gets me.
Yeah, I like the mandolin. The mandolin's nice.
Mandolin, yeah.
I wish I was more musical, honestly. I tried to play piano as a kid, but like there was just something about having to read the musical notes and then remember what key is which. When it like triples itself, it's like, fuck, dude. This is a lot.
That's too much work. Yeah.
And then I was like, I'll just play hockey and do sports.
That's cool too. That all works. I've played guitar for a very, very long time, since I was 13, but I don't read music for the same reason. It was just too much of a headache. But I learned to develop my ear really quickly, and I can just play everything by ear. And that's been a lot.
Impressive though. Like that is really impressive.
It kind of comes natural. If you listen to music a lot and then you play an instrument, you can kind of start to see, like if I listen to guitar, I can see on the guitar neck what they're doing, and oftentimes just pick it up because I can see it in my mind, like, oh yeah, I know what they're doing. Just start playing.
Are you almost like able to like turn off the other sounds too, and then just hear the like that line? Because I know some people that do the drums, you know, like they'll hear the drum line and everything else will just turn off for them, and they just hear. It's like that's crazy,
sure.
dude.
Yeah, the interesting part is when you can actually start to pick out individual harmony lines of like layered harmonies. That's when it starts to get really interesting, because a lot of times when they blend them together, you can't tell that it's actually two different ones, two different notes blended together. But when you start to hear all of those harmony lines, it becomes very interesting. I know in a lot of singing, a lot of it goes by the wayside, like you tune out the harmonies, but if you listen really close, you can start to hear a lot of it.
Yeah, I love how just beautifully artistic it is. Like cinematography, photography, music, all of it. It's such an expressive art form, and it is my favorite thing in the world that we can enjoy some of these masterpieces that people have made. Like it's so interesting to me that you can take so many different things and then it just comes together in such a masterful way that it's like you can't recreate these things. You just can't. These are moments in history that will live forever.
Yeah, definitely. There's a scene in Tarantino's movie, and I always get the name of the movie wrong, but it was Once Upon a Time in America, or I don't know, whatever. In Hollywood, yeah. There's a scene in that where the camera kind of comes up over this hill, and you see Brad Pitt's character driving up, and as it comes up, DiCaprio's character is in a pool, and then the camera comes over the house, and then whatever her name is comes out the door with her boyfriend at the time.
Yep.
And I remember like watching that scene going, damn, how did they do that? And then there's a behind the scenes part where they show it, and Tarantino's like, he's a master at what he does, and he's also a master at knowing the right people to get the job done that he wants done. And so he had this guy that's worked with him forever, and the guy's like, oh, I know exactly how to do that. We just need a crane. We can do it all in one take. Wow. And and they did. They showed. He did it all in one take, and I was like, how? Everybody's got to be right, like perfect, like the car coming up, DiCaprio.
If it's a millimeter off, the whole shot's off.
It's gone. Yeah, and then to deal with light also in all of the scenes that they're shooting, because they have to add a lot of ambient light and all that stuff. So much has to come together for that little 3-second clip. It's not. It's crazy the amount of effort they put into that stuff, and it looks so good.
Yeah, it always blows my mind because it's like
the things you can do with a video camera in someone's mind.
Yeah, and like
crazy.
Some of the ways that people can edit these things together, like especially if you can't do it in one shot because it's just physically not possible. It's like some people are masters at like seeing that like end product in their head, and they're like, oh, all we got to do is here, here, and here, and then it just flows like it never was cut in anything. It was just one shot that continues. But realistically, they shot that 4 or 5 different times in different places. Like, how, man? That's so wild.
It's amazing. I agree with you. It's a
For
great art
people
form.
to be able to act and do the same thing exactly the same over and over again until the take is
Acting
right.
itself is also super interesting because it's like we'll try to do like little like skits and things like that and play characters to read and stuff, and it's like that is actually kind of hard to do. Like I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie.
yeah, for sure. I don't know how they do
Completely.
like full movies and stuff,
Mhm.
how they have it
Especially
all
method
memorized.
actors.
Yeah. Mm.
Like, I'm
Thankfully they
pretty
do
sure
though.
what was it? The Joker movie, who whatever the what's his name?
Joaquin
Joaquin
Phoenix.
Phoenix? Yeah,
Yeah,
Joaquin. Yeah, they said when he was punching the time clock, he did it in method acting, and he hit it so hard that he literally did break his hand.
I don't
And he's
doubt
like,
that.
he went that hard.
Yeah, yeah, I don't doubt that. Yeah. There's a scene in another Tarantino movie, Django Unchained, where DiCaprio slams like this glass, I think it was like a glass mug or a dish down on the table,
Yeah.
and cut the shit out of his hand,
Oh,
not
yeah.
unintentionally. And it's funny, they're like interviewing Quentin Tarantino afterwards, and he's behind the camera watching this all happen, and then when DiCaprio holds his hand up and it's all bloody, he like kind of looks from the side of the camera. He's like, "What's going on? Oh my god, keep going. That's great stuff." Yeah, don't stop. So it's interesting when that kind of stuff happens and makes it into film, makes
Mhm.
it all more believable.
Yeah, it's not I mean, same thing with, like, how you do your wildlife photography, where it's like, you almost have to, like, catch lightning in a bottle to see some of these things that you get to see.
Yeah, yeah. Or understand the animals really well, and then it's
That's
repeated.
true.
But
Mhm.
it's very similar in that regard that like a lot has to come into play for it
Mhm.
to be viewable. I would say,
Right.
the animals, they got to eat every day, but to capture them doing like these life things like eating isn't always easy. Like today is a good example. I went out to the place where we always go, and for whatever reason, all the birds went about a mile away to a place that was not accessible. So it's like,
Yeah.
they've got their own agenda today. They're not
Yeah, it
going to
just
come hang out
happens.
with us. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
the same thing with hunting. Like, I know
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of hunters will sit out in the woods and they'll be like, "I didn't see a single thing today." And then other times
that's
they'll be
right.
like, "I sat out there and saw a shit ton of wildlife."
Right. Yep.
Yeah. I've definitely
Yep.
had those dates in the woods. Like, it's crazy because, like, like, I have basically a farm that I hunt, and deer are very patternable animals. They're very much of an animal of routine
Yeah, they'll dig their
until
rut.
something gets in front of that routine, whether it be a new food source arriving because of the change of the seasons or, snow coming, so they go to the next, like, nutrient source. So they'll change their pattern, or hunting pressure will make them change their pattern. The wind, like there's so many
Yeah.
different variables that like determine what this animal's gonna do daily, just like how
Sure.
things determine our own lives. So it's crazy that like we have such a contrast with each other. We don't really even realize it.
Yeah, I agree with that too.
Because like we wake up, they wake up. First thing they want to do is eat. Usually the first thing we want to do is eat or get some coffee or something to provide us energy. So like we're we're both animals, like we're not too far apart
We
from.
live in our habits.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of parallels.
There is a lot of parallels.
Yeah,
That's why I
definitely.
think the animal kingdom is so interesting because like all of these different animals, and we don't even know every single species
That
that's
is also
on the
crazy to
planet.
think.
Have you ever come across an animal that's like super rare at all?
Yeah, quite often. So maybe it's not so rare, but no. Yeah, I mean, things happen sometimes that bring animals closer. Like usually, either you go looking for it, or maybe like weather or something would change stuff up to
Yeah.
bring weird stuff around. So.
Yeah, I always think it would
Especially,
be really interesting to like do the Congo or like, like go to like a rainforest where it's like either deforestation is causing movements and like you might stumble upon something you've never seen, or just the fact that it's untouched territory. Like it
sure.
just sounds wild.
Yeah, I mean, there's places like that even in the in the States that are pretty wild. And in Costa Rica, we do some of that stuff. Some of the places you go into the jungle are pretty wild. My favorite place is where we went is they call it the cloud forest because you're up really high on this
Oh,
mountainside in the
yeah.
clouds, and it's like you're in a different country at that point. I think we were at about 9,000 feet, and there's a specific species of bird that people want to see there called the resplendent quetzal, and it's this crazy bird with like a 3 foot long green tail and like a bright red body and a green head, and it doesn't even look real when you see them, but they're almost mystical in a sense that they don't come out in the sun. They feel vulnerable, so as soon as these clouds kind of come in and shroud you in fog, they kind of just come out of nowhere. It's really wild. But
God,
they're
that sounds amazing.
they're unreal. And it some of these things, like, and that's a good example. It looks like you're looking at like a Jim Henson animatronic creation when you see him come out, and
Yeah.
they regard you in a completely different way. These birds, they just really slowly kind of look and give you the side eye, and they just check you out real slow, and then they're like, all right, you're cool, and then they go about their business. But it's weird just to see them and their behaviors. It's just so different. And then, like I said, the fact that they prefer to come out in the mist. It's like the mist kind of comes in, and here they come too with it. It's really interesting behavior.
That is interesting. I've never even heard of that bird. That's
it
crazy.
sounds so just beautiful though. Like be up above the clouds and just like the scenery too. And then it's like not only that, you get to experience these like animals that are just like, all right, cool, I'm just gonna do me. But like,
Yeah.
well, I would never have even known this had I not talked to you now. Cause what?
They're neat looking birds. And I know at one time I think they were hunted because people wanted the feathers and stuff, but they're protected now.
That's the tragedy in it too.
Yeah, but that's also one of the cool things about doing this kind of stuff is it's kind of like the ripple effect. Like, so I might be able to go to this place and see this bird, but then I can bring back some incredible footage and then share it, and then suddenly all these people are now aware of this bird, and it brings like a different level of awareness.
Yeah, the conservation's there now.
Yeah, and then people are like, wow, I kind of want to protect this because I want to go see it. And so then they're
100%.
more apt. Yeah, they're more apt to want to protect it. And it's interesting, like the local economy there, these birds are up high and they eat only an avocado at this time of year. And the avocado is about the size of an olive. It's really small, and it grows on these trees. And the place where we go, the guy is a farmer. He bought this hillside, on the side of the mountain, and he had this huge this huge avocado tree, and it was taking up so much space on his farm. He was going to cut it down because he couldn't grow his crops. And then he saw this bird. He saw the bird come in there, and he's like, "Well, maybe I should keep the tree." And this was many, many years ago. And now he's smart. Now he brings groups of people in, charges them a lot of money into his property because these birds come in and feed on this tree that he almost cut down. So now he makes more money off of ecotourism than he does off of farming because he kept everything the way it was instead of tearing it down. So it's kind of a cool twist.
I love that, cool twist, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, where it's like it all works out for everybody in the end too. Where it's like not only do the birds get like their ecosystem not being inhibited, but like he's also profiting off of it. Which I'm not saying like we should monopolize these things and like start gouging, but like it's really cool to see that like people are actually like benefiting from these things too. Where it's like he made a decision, like the decision was his to make at the end of the day, and he chose the right one apparently.
Yeah, and he has it's interesting. He has some restraint. He only works with 2 or 3 outfits. He won't let a bunch of people come up there, and he only lets a few people at a time. He limits it. And there are literally tour buses coming through there with 20, 30 people piling out of the bus in the middle of these mountain roads looking for this bird. If they only knew, just a little further away on this guy's
avocado tree.
Yeah, right. But it's cool. Like when we were there was also an opportunity where our guide got a call from another guy, and the guy's like, "Hey, I've got a small avocado tree in my front yard, and a quetzal showed up yesterday. It's literally like on my front porch, and this bird is so rare. People will go to Costa Rica for years and never see it."
Wow.
So this guy calls my guide, and he's like, "Do you want to bring your people here?" And he's like, "Definitely." So it's neat. So we go to this guy's literally his house, and 10 feet from his front porch is this bird just sitting in the rain. So beautiful. And it's an interesting process to see because we give this guy money to come onto his property. He now sees that bird as valuable. So he's going to do everything he can to protect that bird and the environment in which it exists. So it's kind of a cool way of how it all works. And that guy's experience, that bird will be in his yard for like 5 or 6 days until it eats all the fruit off of his avocado tree, and then it'll be
Yep.
gone. So he just has this short opportunity. But now you can see he's like, I need more avocado trees, which is like a natural plant up there. We should put more of these because then more of these birds will come, and maybe I can make some more money. So it's a cool process how it all kind of pans out.
Yeah, for sure. Like that is really interesting. Because I mean, you never would think that a bird would make you money that's not your own bird, you know?
Yeah,
At least to
bird.
me, I would never have thought about that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like I got this rare rabbit, but you know, like
the rabbit's 800 pounds, but it only comes around at night and it eats all of my carrots.
Yeah, it's cool. It's neat to see how they kind of celebrate it all down there.
Well, if you don't mind, I do actually have a clip of yours that I pulled up that I really liked.
Yeah, let's give the people
so
a little taste.
Give the people a little taste of what you you produce here.
Sure.
This was one that you posted like a year ago about some foxes. You probably remember it.
Oh yeah, that's where the foxes and the eagles fight.
So cool.
I kind of jumped ahead here.
It's the perfect backdrop for this. The red fox. And as luck would have it, this fox isn't alone. It has a mate.
That's adorable.
Yeah, they're cool animals.
It's not often that I get to photograph animals with mountain ranges in the background and flower-filled meadows in the foreground, so I take this opportunity to grab a few shots. And of course, these two beauties make every single shot worthwhile with nonstop playful antics that are sure to make anyone smile.
You can see every little aspect of the fur too. Like, it's incredible.
And I think this soft boop on the nose means tag, you're it, because these two are off again. It is a sheer joy to watch these two frolicking in the grass. But hey, wait, where did they go? Let's take a closer look. This might look like a fight, but it isn't. These two are just having a good time, and you can kind of tell in this shot. I think the fox in the back is saying, hey, what you got down there? And the other, well, it has stopped to smell the beautiful purple lupine flowers that are starting to bloom. That's right. Even the foxes know that sometimes you have to stop and smell the flowers. But something has grabbed the other fox's attention. Is it friend or foe?
All the little babies, they're fun.
Are we back? Cool.
Are we back?
You
lagged
lagged
out
out
there
on
for a
us for a
second.
hard
We had
second.
a blip there.
Yeah, whoopsie daisy.
But I just love that capture that you have there.
It's so
it,
incredible.
It shows the innocence of the fox, and it's like curiosity.
How far away are you in those shots? You know, like a football field, longer. You know.
I would say the ones in the beginning when they were on the ridge were pretty far away.
Yeah.
The others were obviously much closer. Those fox are they're habituated and they're used to humans, and there's actually a group of people close by that live in homes that feed those foxes, which is not a good thing.
Right.
But so they're very used to humans, and I think like most situations, like if you just kind of sit and relax and don't pose a threat, especially to these foxes that are kind of used to humans around, they kind of ignore you and go about their business. So
Right.
yeah.
Because I mean, like, granted, StreamYard does dull down the quality to 720p, but like those are like some of the most beautiful shots that I've ever seen of the sort.
Thanks.
Like, you can see every aspect of like the animal itself. Like, you can see their personalities coming out too. Like, it's beautiful.
For me, you can see why we had to ask if you were the
Yeah,
Planet Earth
this
Mark,
is
because I felt like I was
way
watching
better
Planet
than
Earth
that.
right there, like, incredible.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, definitely.
How often do you get to go do these like type of things and experience them? Like, is it like on like a monthly basis, like a couple month thing, or is it, like year round, like we're just going when we can?
Yeah, year round, almost every day.
It's amazing.
Yeah. If I'm not traveling outside of home, I do it here at home. Florida is a pretty unique place, and we have
Yeah, it is.
Definitely.
huge abundance of wildlife that just loves it here. So it can be very interesting here as well. That's where I do most of the birds. We got a lot of really good bird activity here.
Yeah, the wetlands are definitely like a really, really interesting place to me.
So diverse, so many different species all in one area.
Yeah, like I mean, over the summer when we were going up the river, we saw otters for the first. I've never seen like otters in Michigan before, and they were like on the bank, and I was like, what?
They were like super like almost basically extinct in Michigan, and as of recently, they've started to make a comeback, and I've been seeing them so much more. Like here where we live in Michigan, we have the Grand River, and we have obviously the Great Lakes because we're right on the coast of Michigan.
Sure.
We have very diverse wildlife, and
It's
to see an
awesome.
animal like that, like an otter, come back and start thriving again.
Who would have known? I was swimming with otters this summer.
Beavers too. Beavers are starting to like really come back. So it's cool to see like a lot of these animals that were huge in the fur trade to where humans basically destroyed them, finally starting to make a comeback after all of these years.
It's almost like you can covet something so hard that you can hurt it.
Yeah. Been huge growth in the birds too. Like a lot of protection for them, and it's cool to see them rebounding like they are.
Right. I mean, I also love the fact that it's like you'll see like the DNR and like other certain aspects of the wildlife preserves and stuff that are like actually trying to repopulate certain like aspects of places where they'll go and they'll, like push like I don't want to say it, or nurture like babies and stuff and then reintroduce them into the wild. It's like I love that stuff. Like if we want to keep this earth as diverse as it is, like there's gonna have to be some intervention here and there.
Sure.
100%.
Hopefully it's the right one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the right one.
Hopefully we're not Jurassic Parking shit.
Yeah, right.
So to kind of segue into maybe something a little more fictional.
Yeah, I would say good. Yep.
We were talking before we went on the live here about alien theories and things like that, and you happen to be a pretty big believer in the aliens as well.
Sure.
So I know you had
stuff happening right now.
Yeah, you said you had mentioned too that you had possibly seen a couple UFOs in your lifetime too. And it's like let's get these out here for the listeners, because I know it was pretty interesting hearing it from you.
Yeah. The most memorable was the most recent. I had gotten up early in the morning to go do a workshop with people to take them out and show them some birds that come in here in the spring in March. And my son was with me, and we were running late, so we both it was one of those days where you kind of wake up and literally roll out of bed and put your shoes on and head out. Like there's no time to get anything done at the house. You just got to go.
Definitely.
And it was still dark. And when we went out, we were looking to the west, and I noticed it immediately. I looked in the sky and I was like, okay, something is different in the sky today. And I looked at my son and I pointed. Right when I looked, I was like, what are those two bright white lights in the sky? Those aren't stars. They're not here normally. And he looks at it and he goes, oh, that is weird. Maybe it's an airplane. And then an airplane flies just casually right through both of them. And so we're like, that's not an airplane.
Maybe not.
No. And they were big. They were good size. And then they just like pulsed really bright and then went dim and then went really, really bright and just whoop, gone. Just like that. We were both like,
what the fuck?
That was a UFO, but we got people waiting on us. We got to go.
Right. Like, how do I process this? Fuck.
Yeah, we had to bail, but that was an interesting one. And then I've seen similar things in Colorado from there's an area, a state or a national park called the Great Sand Dunes, and you can actually hike to the top of these sand dunes. It's like a 1,000-foot elevation gain, and you're in the middle of nowhere. Which that whole place where that is like a supernatural hotbed. Just all kinds of weird stuff happens in I think it was the San Luis Valley, I think is where it was. Anyways, up there, kind of something similar. Just I couldn't really ID what this was, and it was kind of zigzagging back and forth, and then it would disappear. and then it would light up like, from my perspective, just a few feet away and do this weird pattern again and then disappear and then light up a few feet away. I've seen that same thing a few times throughout my life, but the one with my son with the bright lights, that was I would say the most profound, to where I was like, yeah, that's nothing I've ever seen before, and I don't know what that was. So.
Yeah, and you spend a lot of time outside, so it's like you obviously know what you're looking at out in the skies.
Yeah, I mean, I knew it. Like I said, immediately, even half asleep, I looked up at the sky and said, "Something's wrong. That's not the right pattern."
We don't have 3 suns. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, no, that's really weird. And I was glad my son was there because he got to see it. Otherwise, it's hard to have validation. You need somebody else to collect.
I know exactly how you feel, because then people are gonna start
crazy. You're
poking
like,
the holes too.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, you were tired. Well, like, no. He saw the same thing, dog.
Yeah.
And we're 2 different people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's about it with the UFOs. My brother had weird experiences. He told me that he had been abducted before, and he he had some weird stuff. Really weird stuff. I mean, that would go a long ways. But he ended up getting cancer and dying in 2015, I think it was. And during his last few years, he told me some interesting stuff about some of his experiences, and just weird stuff.
Yeah, where it's like, how, if you have an imagination, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
I always wonder how.
What's that?
Like, how, if somebody isn't making that stuff up, it's got to be true, or have some type of validation to it, where it's like your brain is pretty crazy and you can make up cool things, but I don't think it's that intricate where you can have full on memorable experiences where you play it back to people, if he what he experienced and he told you, where it's like,
yeah,
how do you just make that up?
Yeah, you have to be very creative. For sure.
So where would you go if you had, that you haven't gone yet? That would be a bucket list place for you that, it's I've always wanted to make it here, but I haven't got a chance to yet.
I think Australia or New Zealand would be on top of my list. Yeah, definitely. There's got some interesting stuff there.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm terrified of the spiders, but other than that, that place would be seriously cool. See the Great Barrier Reef, and then just the amount of the outback that people are like, no, it is dangerous out there. You don't even understand. It's rough, and it's but it's just a desert. It's just some watered places, got some trees. No, you don't understand it till you see it for yourself, which I haven't, but.
Yeah, it'd be cool to go there and try to do what they do, go on a walkabout. Just go for a walk for a few days.
Yeah,
I 100% agree. I think the experience in Australia would be incredible. There's so many different animals that you can't experience anywhere else. They're only in Australia.
Exactly, yeah.
So you just never know what you're gonna come across at any given time. You can come across the kangaroo and then 10 minutes later come across a saltwater crocodile.
That is actually pretty wild.
Yeah, I had a client that did the Eagle trip with me this summer, and he was Australian, and he had a great time. But he told me and my son that when we're ready to come down there, and he'll show us around. And he's a diver, specifically, photographing the great whites. And he said, "I'll put you in a cage where there's just massive great whites all around you." He said it would be intense. I said, "Let's go. I'm ready."
Have you ever dove with sharks or done underwater photography?
Yeah, I've snorkeled with sharks, which was probably even worse than diving with them. But
yeah, that sounds a little less secure.
I'm terrified of sharks, man. So terrified.
Yeah,
terrified of the ocean, terrified of sharks.
It was an interesting experience. We did it here off of the coast, about 3 miles, and we went with a guide. And you're gonna do a shark dive in a cage, and it was me, my son, his girlfriend, and his best friend. And when we get in the boat and we get all the way out there, the guy's like, "Who's going in the cage?" And we all raise our hand. And he says, "No, nobody's going in the cage today." Nobody. It's too rough. If you get in the cage, you're going to get beat up. So what we're going to do today is we're just gonna float on the surface with mask and snorkel. And I was like, okay, I guess that's cool.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, and
Oh,
I mean, it's like I think we stopped the boat maybe 30 seconds, and so there was a male guide who was driving the boat, and then a female guide, and she was already in the water. And within 30 seconds, she pops up and she goes, "There's 6 bull sharks already." And I was like, "What?
Holy shit.
How many? Why? We just stopped the boat. Why are they here?" And she's like, "That's just how it is." They throw a rope out. They throw a rope out behind the boat, and basically you just hold on the rope and we drift. And he gave us some information, basically, keep your hands and feet close to your body, don't make any sudden movements, and think of these animals like dogs. They're in the sense that you can read them really well, like when a dog's ears go back, you can tell that they're kind of irritated. So for sharks, it's when their side fins go back, it's kind of the same behavior.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we were floating with him for quite a while, and the water is pretty cold out there, and you can't see the bottom. It's like 150, 200 feet deep,
Oof.
so it's hard to imagine. But you're just kind of floating in this giant blue abyss with like this huge god ray of like light everywhere, and it's very calming. And then the cold water is very calming, and then because you're breathing through a snorkel, you're forced to breathe really slow and like in this meditative state. So you get into this really calm state, and suddenly there's sharks swimming all around you. And at least that was my perspective of it. I was like, wow, there's sharks everywhere.
Like, holy shit.
Yeah, but I was really calm about it. And then one shark shows up. I get him confused. I can't remember if it was a silky shark or a lemon shark. Either way, the guide said, like, he popped up out of the water. He said, this shark is really curious, and it will literally like swim right up into your face. This one, if it does, just push it away. They just like to
give it the old boop test.
Yeah, right. So, and sure enough, here it comes, and I see it coming up underneath me, and it's like coming up to my foot, and I kind of kick it with my foot, and then it swims around, and it like swims right up into my face. I'm like, all right, that's too much, and I push it away. And
Wow.
at that moment, something happened. Like that shark broke the barrier of distance between us and the sharks. And all the bull sharks that were really calm started getting really weird, and their fins went back, and they started swimming around really quickly. And next thing I know, I see a bull shark kind of doing that, and boom, kind of right beeline right at me. And I'm floating in the water going, wow, there's a bull shark. It's coming right at me. That's weird. And it just getting closer and closer. And again, I was like in this weird suspended calm state. So I wasn't reacting. And from out of nowhere, the guide, who was like the captain, swims over, and it's maybe 5 feet from me, and he punches the shit out of the shark right in the face.
Shit.
Yeah, and then he's like, okay, it's time to go. They're kind of getting aggressive now. And I was like, okay,
Damn.
time to go.
That's crazy.
Overall, it was a cool experience.
Yeah.
I would do it again. It was just a little leery towards the end there. It got a little weird, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's Mother Nature for you, though, where it's like it can, like we said earlier, it can turn on a dime, where it's like those are literally animals. Like, they're not trained to be around people. They don't know what you are.
Yeah. And you're in their environment then too.
You're at their house.
Yeah, when you get in the water, you're not the top of the food chain anymore. You're now part of it. So you have to understand that.
Yeah, I think that's probably what's most terrifying to me about being in open water, where it's like I can do it and I don't have a big problem with it, but like realistically, if I was in the water with sharks like that, I don't know how calm I would be, because it's either fight, flight, or freeze, and I'm probably freezing.
Yeah. I don't know, something about that water, calmed me down. My son's, he had the same effect on him. So just something about that. It'd be different, like if we were, I don't know, in a freshwater area and there were gators everywhere. Then I'd be nervous. Gators, I don't know. You can't really trust those guys. They're kind of creepy.
Yeah, like realistically, what is the size of the brain and how much capacity do they have for using it? I have no idea.
I think they only have one thing on their mind, and that's food.
Yeah, food. Yeah, giant reptiles. Yeah.
So, what do you find most appealing about photography?
Quite a few things. I think learning about your subjects, like, in this case, the animals.
Oh yeah.
you can kind of put them under a microscope, so to speak, and learn a lot of things from watching them and taking their photos or videoing them in slow motion. You can also learn a lot about yourself in that whole process, because once you kind of like anything else, once you get comfortable with it, like you get kind of on autopilot and you can kind of get
Yeah.
into the flow state, and next thing you know, a few hours has gone by and it feels like just 2 or 3 minutes. And
Yeah, you
I think,
blink and it's gone.
yeah, I think getting into that calm space is one of the biggest attractions to me. So, and then learning and taking something from it to better yourself in
Yeah.
whatever way, I think is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, that's pretty much how we feel about it too. Like the paranormal to us was always so appealing because it's like not only do we get to research these places and these events and stuff like that that are in themselves very interesting, but like to have these accounts of things still happening, it's like, oh, well, now this is already like another enigma in my brain. But then at the same time, you're right. Like you find out things about yourself where it's like, what are my limits? You know, like
Yeah,
what's really causing me to like get this much drive to do this? And it's like, oh, it's the want to know what's the unknown.
Yeah, and, like, once we get into that investigative state, it's kind of like what you said, it's like a flow
Yeah, you
state,
just
like,
bing done.
a 8-hour investigation goes by in a blink of an eye because you're just so almost, like, hyper focused on the
yeah,
situation at hand that
Mhm.
you
yep,
don't even take account to what else is happening in the world or outside of your general space of
Yeah,
thinking.
and there's always something you can derive from it. Like, there's always, like, you can do something better, you know? Where it's
sure,
like, I love being hypercritical on myself too, which, like, not in, like, a terrible way, but, like, realistically, it's like, okay, like, I should have did this a little bit differently because I think it would've looked better this way. But it's like, those are things that you need, you know, like, to keep adding that depth to what you're trying to provide or, like, put out there.
yeah, definitely, yeah. Like photography is like a constantly evolving art, and especially if you're outside doing wildlife, you never have the same situation twice. So you're constantly balancing all of these settings within the camera and then yourself, and your own level of excitement so that you can be calm during the situation, and
Mhm.
then understanding the animal and reading the animal at the same time, or the weather or the wind or their food source, all that stuff. um, so you kind of get into this cool space and understanding of all of that stuff.
Yeah, and it's nice too because, like, a lot of people probably don't have that type of knowledge or, like, that wealth where it's like, it's just you know what you know, and you know, like, numbers, and I know how to do financing, and I know how to do this and that or ship things all over the world, but
Sure.
realistically, it's like these finite little things where it's like, I've honed this craft. Like,
Yeah.
I feel really good presenting it in the light that it's at, and it's like, I to me, I there's something about people that can bring another aspect of the world that's there that I don't understand or that I'm not very, in tune with, where it's like,
Mhm.
"This is the most fascinating thing ever. I had
Sure.
no idea, and now I get this. Like, this is beautiful."
Yeah. That's cool. And that happens a lot with the stuff that I do. And that's a great thing too, is like, people come out with me as part of my job. They pay me to teach them how to do this stuff.
Mhm,
But to give them a starting point and then to see them kind of figure it out and then it click, and then to stand back and, like, take the training wheels off and let
mhm.
them go is really, really cool to see too.
I do love that. I really do. Like, those dweebs, like, that are in the chat right now with us, I got to do an investigation with them. Oh, it had to have been over a year and a half ago now at one of the locations we were at, and, like, they asked me a bunch of questions, and, like, we became friends, and now I see them, like, putting their own videos out, and they just released a new trailer, and it's like, "You guys have come so far, and I'm so proud of you guys."
That's cool.
It's like it feels really good, and the community, like, the paranormal community, it has its ups and downs where some people
Just
wanna,
like
like,
just like any
clash, but
community of
yeah,
anything.
but realistically, it's such a loving community of people that I just want the same thing, which is, like, to understand what's really going on out there, and we really don't.
Yeah, this is true. We're only built to interpret so much. So,
Mhm. And realistically, in our short lifespans, we're only gonna get a very small window of it.
yeah, exactly.
I'm actually trying to pull up some photos that we
Yeah.
took.
So there is a few photos of like things that we captured that I mean are to me like pretty credible evidence, but also like you being an expert photographer, it's like if you can deduct what this is, then we will 100% throw that evidence out because I'm not an expert in it whatsoever.
Sure.
Because we've had other photographers analyze it and they can't explain it at all.
Feed it to ChatGPT and see what it says.
Right, yeah.
Salad.
I didn't even think about that until just now either. I love that.
Okay, so this is one of our favorite cemeteries to go to. We captured this photo. What we believe is the apparition of a woman in like a period era dress.
I
You
think
can
I
see it.
yes, I see.
The
Oh
face
yeah, I see. Yeah,
here,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then like the poofiness of a dress
Yeah,
and
and
an
then it
arm.
looks like a
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was just taken from the parking lot. There was only one overhead light right there, and the light
Right.
is in front of the fence that's right there too. So it's closer to where I was standing when I took the picture. And
Sure.
there was no smudges on my lenses or anything. I took a few more, but they got lost in translation because I had to use my phone.
Did
But
you
it's weird.
did you see this before you took it, or are you just taking random pictures?
I took it.
It was later that night.
Yeah, and I looked at it
He
later that
texted
night.
to me and was like, "Dude, what's this?"
So like I was just going click, 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 and then I was going back through and I saw that and I was like, whoa, whoa.
Interesting.
Like, what
Yeah,
is that?
I can't say on that one. I don't know.
Yeah, because we tried to say it's lens flare, we tried to say it's like matrixing of some sort, but then it's like it doesn't make sense why it's behind the fence.
And it's only in the specific
Yeah,
area.
and then it's
Yeah.
very, very like dense in certain spots where you'd think it would be, and it's like, this is odd.
Yeah, it's definitely an oddity.
All right, so the next one is actually it was a succession photo, so it was a burst photo.
Yeah, so my
session.
wife was using her actual DSLR camera.
So this is the first one. Oh, okay, it's not showing yet. I gotta.
Okay, you
change
gotta
the
represent the
cruise in.
screen.
Yeah. All right, so
Yeah, because my wife took a couple pictures from the same spot, but like farther back, and you can see like this like shadow figure move through the frame.
so this is the first frame. You can kind of see it entering here. This
Yeah.
blackness.
Mm-hmm.
It's like permeating the light, and then the second one, it's even worse.
And then this is the next photo.
Yeah, and then it moves farther into screen.
Oh yeah.
So what we
Definitely.
found super interesting about it is it's a solid black mass that's in front of the light source. So
Yeah.
there should be no shadow there like that where it's vertical. If anything, a shadow is going to be, or even with the
and in the
ground.
next photo that she took after that one, it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it's like,
weird.
how does that happen?
And we think it has like a hooded figure type look to it.
Because when we oversaturated it and played with the levels of it, you can see like an outline more or less, and it's like,
And how the light
Whoa.
kind of like reflects off of it in this corner is kind of weird. How,
Yeah.
I don't know.
because these are the
Strange
unedited
photo.
versions, right?
Yeah, this is
That's just the raw photo
that's
too.
the raw photo right off the file.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you have any explanations on what that could be, fuck, I don't know.
No idea, man.
It's
You got me.
those type of anomalies, like
Yeah.
we'll have like uploading files, like trouble, or we'll have like pictures get corrupted and like it almost looks like somebody took a VCR and just like ripped the tape out while it was going, and it's like, why does this look like that? Like I don't understand.
Supernatural. Who knows?
Supernatural.
I think so.
That's the way. That's where we're going with it because I can't explain it.
No explanations whatsoever, other than that was fuck cool.
Yeah, those are interesting. I wouldn't know what that was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really glad that you like being the experts you are. It's like, oh shit, like yes, that's credible to me.
Yeah, the last one, especially the way that dark whatever it was moved through the frame was weird.
Yeah, like it's super odd. It is so odd. And me and him were in like the back of the cemetery while that was happening, and then my wife goes, "Oh, guys, can we leave now?" And I was like, "What's happening, dude? Like, let's walk back
We're
up
like,
there."
oh my gosh, he wants to leave.
Yeah,
he didn't
and
want to
then
leave.
She was showing us the photos like in succession, and we're like, "What the fuck, dude? Like, we got to go walk through there one more time."
And the crazy thing to the end of that story is, as we were leaving the cemetery, a tree had fallen in the road, blocking our exit.
Oh,
yeah, and we didn't hear it either. That was the weird part. And that was the same night too that we had one of our devices that'll read like the electricity and the milligauss. So like we were watching it and it jumped up to like 300. Well, the normal baseline is between 1 and 3 milligauss for like your house, you know, or like outside realistically. You know, you might get a spike here and there because of like a random pocket or something. 0.3, sorry. But yeah, it jumped up to over 300, and I was like Googling it on the way home, and it was the equivalent to a nuclear bomb going off in like energy. And I was like, why? We were in the woods.
Yeah, the cemetery is like a forgotten cemetery in the middle of the woods. It's really,
and that was the
creepy
and
place.
that all 3 of those photos were taken in the same night.
Oh, yeah, that's weird.
And it's like, what the fuck?
And that's where the tree was falling?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that cemetery in particular was probably one of the most wild investigations that we did prior to like going to some of the more well-known locations that we've done so far now.
Yeah, it's like a local legend spot type thing.
Yeah, that's the best too, is like the local stuff. Like how you were saying, like get to see the osprey basically just drive up the road. They're right there on the coast, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's those hidden gems. I love it.
We get them sometimes. If you go out on the big lake, we'll have ospreys here.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, they go that far.
Man,
they've all left now. They all came to me.
Yeah, it's fucking cold up here.
Yeah, they've gone south for the winter.
It's always crazy to me too that like some certain like biomes, like Michigan in particular, sees every season. Like it's really interesting that some animals can literally weather every type of season.
Yeah. It's weird.
Ghosts must be able to as well.
I would think so. How do you feel about Bigfoot?
Yeah, being someone that likes the Pacific Northwest, how do you feel about Bigfoot?
I love Bigfoot.
Oh, hell yeah.
Are you a firm believer?
Oh, I would say at one time I think Bigfoot did exist. I don't know if Bigfoot still does. I don't know.
Right.
I was in, where were we? My son and I were in Tennessee or North Carolina. I can't remember, or South Carolina. We were at a place trying to photograph bears, and we had gone way, way off into the woods, and we were around a lake. And we were with an older lady who knew the bears really well, who was kind of guiding us through the area. And we heard like the classic Bigfoot sound of like rocks being smacked together. No,
clack, clack.
The clack, yeah. And it was so loud, and I remember looking at my son going,
that's not right.
Yeah, and then I looked at the lady, and I was just curious. I said, have you ever heard that sound before? And she's like, no, what is it? And I was like, oh, I didn't want to say anything to her, but I was like,
right. Yeah, you don't want to perpetuate the
legend says it's Bigfoot. But yeah, we definitely heard that day, and that was weird for sure. I've joked about it a lot in the Pacific Northwest, and because it's really popular over there, especially if you go into Oregon. They talk about it a lot. But yeah, I mean, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
I think Bigfoot's actually like an
alien.
An alien.
That's what some people say.
It would make sense though. Like if it was if he was, this would sound so wild right now. If there was a very large population of Bigfoot that lived on this earth, it would make sense why we have so many accounts of it. If they were as highly intelligent as they are, it would also make sense to why we can't find their burial mounds or any of their, remnants basically. Yeah. But like the fact that if we're still seeing them, that tells me that they either have a place to go to and like just like dip out, or like we just don't realize that they're just pocket dimension travelers and they already have this stuff and they just go to their ship and just gone.
Yeah, they're interdimensional travelers. Yeah.
That would be so.
That would mess my mind up, though. I'm not gonna lie. If that theory is prevailing and it's real, and Bigfoot actually is an alien, and we've lived with it our whole lives, it's like, shit. I'm not as crazy as I thought, but I'm so crazy.
So we have a theory we joke about as to why you never see a clear picture of Bigfoot. Do you know why that is?
Mm-mm.
Because Bigfoot is just a naturally blurry creature.
Oh,
like an active camo almost.
I know exactly how you say. Yeah, that's interesting as shit. Like it's almost like your perception of it's distorted.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
Because I mean,
you can't get a clear shot of Bigfoot. It's impossible.
Yeah, nobody ever really has.
That's interesting because like what if you were to take the clearest photo ever, but would your brain be able to perceive what it's seeing?
That's the other thing. Like it's like psychology says, like you'll bury trauma stuff or things that you don't understand. You'll try to relate it back to things that you do know. Well, who's to say that if you see a creature that you don't know what it is or you've never encountered anything like it, that your brain doesn't immediately go to the trauma, where it's like the trauma responses, which I guess not everybody would have the same trauma response to something like that, but subconsciously, I'm sure you're gonna bury some stuff.
Sure. There's a
paparazzi scarf. That's pretty good. That's really good.
Now you'd be able to see him if he did. Be a dead giveaway, yeah, like a big feather boa.
And he's like hitting the runway, strutting. Like, check out these feet.
I mean, Bigfoot's kind of interesting. Like people literally spend their lives studying a creature that no one knows exists, but people have found like things that we can't explain in nature that they relate to Bigfoot. Like, I don't know if you've heard of like the tree laying thing, or they like mark trees with like laying them on top of each other to make like a triangle shape, basically.
No,
I don't even doubt that they're descendants of giants, because giants are real. Like, there's bones in the Smithsonian of giants.
Yeah. And Hobbit people too.
Yeah, exactly. Like how, like you can't tell me that we can't just deny these things, because we can't. Like these are like actual factual things.
Sure.
But they just don't want to tell you about it, you know. That's the funny part.
Dragons get me, man. I want to believe that dragons actually did exist one day.
But like, I think they were more like giant chickens than they were like actual scaly dragons. Because like velociraptors technically
are the
like,
first version of a dodo bird.
Exactly, but like they're like badass. Like I have no idea, because we've obviously never actually encountered one in real life. But like, how can we say that we would know what they would look like? You know, like scaly. You know, like these armored titans, basically. Like I don't know.
Yeah, there's an interesting philosophical, I don't know if you would call this test or idea. If you raised somebody in a cave, and you only ever showed them shadows of what was real, and then you brought them into the real world and exposed them to what they were seeing that was making the shadows, how would they understand that? And then if you go one step further, are you ever really out of the cave? Or are you just moving from one cave to the next?
Shit,
mind blown.
Yeah,
right
holy fuck. Yeah, that's very deep. Like, damn.
Yeah, it's pretty cool if you think about it.
It's kind of like what we were talking about earlier. Like, what's the perception of anything,
I mean,
really?
what level of simulation are we in right now? Where it's like, are we simulating other people, simulating other people, simulating other people? Like, I have no idea.
Have you ever read the Minecraft in-game poem?
I have not.
Oh, you should read it. It's really good. It basically says that we will see all of these things when we're ready, when we are consciously ready to accept all of that, and we're just not yet. So haven't reached that level.
Yeah, I don't think anybody had, like, realistically, I don't think until we leave our mortal coils, like, we will have the keys to then unlock it. Because I don't think as soon as you like pass on to whatever spiritual form, like, granted, everybody thinks about it differently too, but it's like, realistically, I don't think you're just like gifted all the answers. I think you have to do a little bit of digging or a little bit of work for those.
Yeah, probably.
So it's such a wild concept. Like, there's so much, like, there's so many paranormal theory that, like, it's just so cool to think about it, where it's like,
right. And it kind of like, I mean, that's such a like a morbid thing too, you know? So like,
but it's everywhere.
But
like, every aspect of life that is any living creature is going to live and die at some point. That's the crazy thing too.
Yeah, none of us are gonna get out of this alive.
Yeah, I mean, we're trapped. Like, that's the other fucked up part too, is like we are trapped inside of these bodies. Like, not in a bad way, but like realistically, like once you're born, you're trapped here. Like, there's no getting away from yourself at that point. Like, you are who you are. And it's one of the wildest things you have to like actually like sit down and like, holy fuck, who am I?
Yeah.
Like in this fucking gigantic world of billions of people, I'm one person that is here. What?
Interesting.
It's so fun because I don't know, like it's to me, it's like there's just so many different things on this planet that you can be passionate about. But at the end of the day, it's like it's so wonderful to get to learn about all these other ones too. Where it's like
Yeah.
I might not have ever gotten the opportunity to speak with you about some of these amazing shots or some of the locations that you've gotten to go to, or unless it's like branched out, you know, like you gotta like get out of some certain comfort zones sometimes and like see really what's out there. And like you have to
Oh, definitely.
experience them.
Definitely
Right.
have to do that.
I totally agree. Like one of my favorite places I've ever been to was Alaska, just because of how like wild it really is. Like once you walk out off the beaten path to like go find a good spot to fish
It
for
ain't like
salmon,
Michigan.
it's totally different. Like for one, you're experiencing something that is crazy. The salmon run. There's so many fish all doing the same thing, literally, like we were talking, coming to the end of their life to start new life within the ecosystem. So like
Sure.
getting to explain be part of that, and then also being, on the riverbanks with probably the most ferocious animal on the planet, a grizzly bear,
Yeah.
like 200 yards from me on the other side of a river or something, like,
That's
it's
crazy.
there for the same reason I am to catch this fish because it knows, "Hey, I have to indulge now because I'm gonna go hibernate."
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
it's like it the 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 way the world is and, like, all of the connections, it's like it
Everything works hand in hand
it
too. Like
does.
that's the craziest part.
It does.
It's like
Yeah.
unless you have that perfect storm of things, like certain things just would not exist. And
Yeah.
you can see, and there's evidence of it too with like how climate change has affected certain things in certain populations of animals. But it's like, wow, you literally need that chain of events to happen in order for this to happen. And it
Yeah.
is such an awe-inspiring, like humbling thing where it's like, I'm just a cog. Like I'm not the one perpetuating this. I might be keeping it going, but like I am not the one making this work.
Yeah. All the pieces seem to fit.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's just the way life in general has a way of knowing how to prevail,
It's a beautiful
always.
puzzle. Like, it really
Yeah.
is. Like, you just gotta find where you fit.
Yeah. What is it in Jurassic Park that Jeff Goldblum says life will find a way or whatever? Is that what he
Yeah.
says?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right.
you're right.
Jurassic Park and us.
It's
Life
true.
always finds a way, even in the darkest situations, it'll find a way to get
I
to the
mean, yeah,
light.
look at, like, Antarctica and stuff like that. Like, I've been reading articles on Reddit, like how we were saying earlier, Reddit holes are crazy. How
Yeah.
there's, like, like, full biomes of ecosystems of just, like, prehistoric fauna and, like, just, like, complete biomes of no reason why we should still have, like, certain cephalopods and other types of animals that have been extinct for tens of thousands of years that are just down there. It's like, that's insane. And then you get hollow earth theory, and it's like, that might even have some weight too. I don't fucking know.
I think it is.
I mean, they definitely have a giant super collider in Antarctica that can completely destroy complete countries, so that's real. I'm not even joking about that. I think that conspiracy is real as fuck.
I don't know. I don't know this one.
So, like, there's been a lot of hoopla that I've been reading lately where Antarctica, it's a frozen desert. Like, it is inhospitable as fuck. But you'll
Right.
get these like outposts of these people that'll go and spend, a couple years there to do their research and whatnot. And there's just certain places that they are not allowed to go to. Well,
Hmm.
why is that, And then you start thinking, where would the perfect place to put a gigantic weapon system or some type of black site that you don't want anybody getting to?
Hmm.
Probably in one of the most inhospitable, hardest places to get to. And
Sure.
then you start thinking about all of, like, the repercussions of that, and then you get this I think it was in South America somewhere, this huge earthquake that was not like, there was no indication that there was supposed to be, like, a fault line there, anything. And then there starts coming from these outposts, like, little bit stories and stories and stories of them having this weapon system that's like a super collider that basically they can, like, shoot these super high frequency, like, beams of energy and just fuck everything up. And it's
Mm.
like, "Oh, okay," like, now you start thinking about, like, mass and particle acceleration and how we already do that, and how DARPA and, what is it? The other big like military wing that does all their research too. That's like another black site dealio. It's like, yeah, I don't think that they have not been trying to do this for a long time because they've weaponized sound at this point. They've weaponized, you know, like, well, not even weaponized, but like they've done their research into like remote viewing, like all kinds of these very obscure things. So like it just made sense to me that that would be where it would and why it would.
Sure. Or that's where all the UFOs are.
Probably. Area 51 is a complete fucking shell. I love it. I want to go in there myself, but it's a shell. There is no way they have actually like crazy shit there.
Distraction zone.
Not
Look
anymore.
here while we do this over here type thing.
They got like some Stargate SG-1 shit where you can just like walk through a portal in a fucking mountain and then you're like somewhere else on the planet.
Yeah.
Insane. Teleportation?
I don't even doubt that that's real. There's been accounts of ships that have done that. I forgot which it wasn't the Manhattan Project. There was another thing like that where a ship lost, like they had lost it to sea for a couple of weeks. It came back and people were like fused to the deck.
How about the shit that's coming forward from the Malaysia flight? Have you seen that stuff?
Actually.
Oh yeah, the one that disappears.
Yeah, how they caught the like they have some like drone footage of like lights circling the plane and then it just I don't know how legit it is, but
I mean realistically though, probably not out of the realm of possibilities.
I don't
think
it.
so.
So how does the plane just disappear?
That's a weird one, yeah.
And that's not even the first time it's happened. It's happened a few times. Like, where's Amelia Earhart?
That's well, okay. That one might be more realistic to explain away, but but yeah, like realistically, it's like you'll see these accounts of these ghost ships of people that are like on these ships. They set sail and then they come back like a couple weeks later, and the crew's like, "We've been gone for years." How the fuck does that happen? For one, where it's like, I mean, maybe it's like a mass hysteria thing. I mean, it's possible. Still super weird. Or like the one story that we read a while ago where it was like the military was doing some testing with like a certain like radioactive chemical or some bullshit or like some type of weapon system that was completely state of the art, and then they fired it up, and then everybody got like flash teleported like 10 feet forward, and it was like time hadn't moved for them, but everybody was like fused to the decks. They were like in between like bulkheads and like
I remember
it was something that like was straight out of a movie that you just wouldn't expect, but like there's actually accounts of this happening, and it's like, okay, so if we were messing with that stuff, like how it was probably in the fucking 70s too, is when I was reading about like when that happened too. It's like how can they not have tried to perfect that by now? Especially if you look at nuclear fission and how far along we've come with that, and how there's been realistically no nuclear explosions on the scale of Fukushima other than like Chernobyl or anything like that, or 3 Mile Island. And it's like, okay, so like we've gotten really good at mitigating loss and certain bad things in a lot of, you know, really, really harsh chemicals and or things that if you are even exposed to it for 30 seconds, you're gonna die.
Have you seen the theory of gosh, what's the chemical? It's like a mineral that's left over after nuclear explosions.
Oh, it's the elephant's foot. It's
God, I can't remember the name of this freaking
it's like
mineral.
the most toxic compound on the planet after nuclear fission happens.
Yeah, and it only occurs after a nuclear reaction. Well, apparently this mineral is all over Mars, like all over Mars. So there's a theory going around that potentially there was maybe some type of bad nuclear explosion and humanoid creatures got on a craft and flew to Earth to leave the nuclear radiated planet.
Sure.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called either.
Especially because like I love ancient civilizations. One of my favorite ancient civilizations is the Anunnaki.
Mm-hmm.
And they believe that, well, it's not even that they believe, it's literally in Smithsonian like text.
Yeah, the tablets, what they have went on it.
Yeah, that like the Anunnaki came to Earth to fix their own planet, basically, and they come by every like however long it takes that planet to come through its solar cycle back closest to Earth, and then they come back to revisit. There's this whole story.
Yeah,
it's actually
they brought us to Earth to mine gold for them, and then if you look at like civilization as a whole, like we are basically slaves to working, and that's all we've really ever been is innovators and workers. And it's like, okay, that theory is pretty crazy, but then you get all the hieroglyphs and stuff from all of these ancient civilizations and these places, and it's like, why are they drawing helicopter looking like, these crafts back in 800?
Yeah, right.
Or what we perceive to be, whatever time is in the relativity of all of it. Because I really don't think that the planet is as old as they say it is, or it's probably older. Like, there's no good way of telling for me. Because the pyramids are another good one, where it's like, I don't think we know everything about the pyramids already. Like, we might know that
I
they're
don't think we know
really,
half the
really
story.
interesting, but they're probably millions of years older than what we know. They're probably even deeper into the sand than what we know. Because if you look at ancient civilizations as a whole, too, why are all these geographical places that have no business being connected sharing similarities? Like why are they all lined up with the North Stars? Why are they all like they all have the same aqueduct systems, basically, where it's like they had no business knowing
They
that.
didn't even know each other existed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're living at the same time on Earth, but they had no idea that each other existed. Yet here we have the same different civilizations, different cultures building giant pyramids to do whatever they were doing for them. Like the Mayans used them to sacrifice people, but
that is wild. Have you ever had the opportunity to go visit any of the ancient sites, like on your travels or whatnot?
No, not yet.
Oh man, I'm sure that's probably a bucket list for you too, though, right?
Yeah, that would be interesting for sure.
Oh man, like your lifestyle is what I wish we could be doing right now. I just want to travel and experience all these things for ourselves because it is seriously some of the coolest stuff ever. Like, I mean, just like some of the places that you've mentioned so far, and I'm sure that's not even all of them. Where it's like, I'm sure you've probably been over to Europe. You've probably been basically everywhere in the world.
No, I wish.
No, not yet. I mean, Costa Rica, Africa, like
to us, that's
God,
pretty
that's
much
a
the world.
lot. Like
Yeah.
that's a very awesome trip. Canada, I haven't even been to Canada yet.
Oh, Canada's awesome.
Yeah, Canada's
It's huge.
I was there when I was little.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I live in such a small rut, and it's like it's so fucking cool just to hear. It's like, no man, like Africa, like we saw lions, like that's literally National Geographic Planet fucking Earth. Like that is the only thing that I get is like watching the videos of it. So it's like,
Yeah.
these first-hand accounts are seriously some of the best.
Yeah. I got to see an elephant dancing under the light of the full moon. That was really weird. Yeah, he stood up on his hind legs to eat these acacia pods, and like you just see a silhouette. Looked like he was dancing. And the locals nicknamed him Fred Astaire because he has such good moves.
That's amazing. That's so amazing.
It was cool. It's weird too, though, like to be there and try to sleep. And most of the places you sleep in a glamorized tent, but the tent's still canvas, and to hear, lions outside like doing their thing, and then other animals. You kind of up all night the first few nights, wondering what the hell's happening outside your tent.
Right?
a
Yeah.
little
100%.
unnerving.
100%. I felt that way when I was in Alaska. I'm pretty sure I had a bear walk within 10 feet of my tent. Like I'm almost positive. I knew no one was camping near us, and I just heard footsteps, and I was like, I'm not getting out of this fucking tent. I'm
Never.
staying right in here.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
I'm just like a gigantic pussy about insects and spiders, which like I can deal with them. But like spiders in particular are like a fucking terrifying fear for me.
Heebie-jeebies right up the spine.
Like if I was laying in a tent and all of a sudden I had like a banana spider or like something that was like a good size, I'd be like, I'm just gonna burn this. I'm done. Like I'll see you guys on the other side. I want to do this, but
Well, I mentioned that we camped on top of the Great Sand Dunes National Park. When you get to the top, right as it gets dark, there is an endemic species of spider that comes out of the sand and crawls around everywhere, and they're about that big. And for a good 30 minutes, the entire outside of the tent was just these spiders crawling up.
Oh
You could
my
flick the side of the
god.
tent, every boom, 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 to get them all off of the tent. But then they disappear back into the sand.
Yeah, they just go back into the sand. See, that's the
Yeah,
sketchiest part. Is they're fucking there the whole time.
yeah, and that's the only place they exist is right there. No other place on the planet.
See,
So that's even
water
weirder.
spiders here are fucking sketchy. Cause like they can get to be like
Oh,
fucking
dock
palm, yeah,
spiders.
like dock spiders can get to be palm size. And I can almost palm a basketball. And I'm no
Yeah,
joke, like they can be that big. And
I
I
don't
heard
doubt
a
it.
story once where a kid like they were like, do not go swim out to this it was like a floating dock, right?
Yeah,
And they were, don't do it. And they were at a camp, and then the kids were like, "Okay, we're gonna do this. You told us no, we're doing it." Well, they
yeah.
got onto the dock, and then when they disturbed it, all those dock spiders came over the side of it and started fucking them up and biting them and stuff. But it's like,
Oh,
oh my god, that's nightmare fuel. Like that is
yeah.
nightmare fuel.
Or if you've ever, I don't know what type of spider it is, but if you like kill it and it's got its babies
Yeah.
on its back, they'll just go everywhere. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, I've done that once.
That's we have those here, wolf spiders.
Yep.
Yeah, wolf spider. Yep,
Ugh.
yep, we got those.
See, like I don't like we'll get the fucking giant woofies here too, where it's like if you like crush it, you can hear it scream sometimes. Or like sometimes if you like if they're on a piece of wood and it's big enough, you're like, fuck that, throw it in the fire, you'll hear it hiss. It'll be like,
Oh,
and it's like, oh my god. Like they do this? Like I would scream too if I was on fire, but like
Oh.
yeah, right.
I think the worst spider, honestly, is the brown recluse because it doesn't make a
Yeah.
web or anything, and they can
Yeah.
literally
It's got
climb.
neurotoxins
Yeah.
where it like dissolves your skin basically, and it's like
Yeah.
unless you get the antidote, you're in
Yeah,
big
it's necrotic. It eats your
necrotic.
flesh.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Basically turns you to a zombie.
Oh, see, and it's like you probably have to be very well versed too when you go to these certain like tropical places, especially where it's like we don't have a ton of poisonous stuff around here, but like
Yeah.
you have to be aware of those things when you're out in the wild trying to like hyper focus on taking a picture of something else, but then it's like, oh, there's a deadly snake scurrying right there.
Yeah, I mean, most of those things don't want anything to do with you, so they stay far away
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
most of the times.
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, you're not disturbing anything by just like taking pictures, like unless you're like legitimately probably cutting down like trees or like rustling things up. Yeah, I don't think you'd too many times encounter a sketchy situation like that.
Yeah, we one of the places we went there's like I don't think it was a banana, but it was kind of like a big banana leaf, and the
Yeah.
underside of the banana leaf had like these tiny little white bats, and all I could think about is if you're just walking through the woods and just push this branch out of the way.
Oh my
bats
god.
would just, they'd be all over the place. It was kind of freaky to see them like that though, and just kind of huddled up, little white bats. It's kind of neat.
That is really neat,
White
actually.
bats.
We've actually the past 2 investigations we've went on, we've been swooped by a bat.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like, oh my gosh. Like, and realistically though, like I think they're really interesting creatures, but like fuck, they're scary. Like it's pitch black, man. I don't want to hear as you're like 2 feet over my head.
Their screech, man, is what gets me. It's like it's
Right.
It's like I had to fucking net one at my parents' house back when I was a kid, and that was sketchy.
I've had a house.
I was
bat,
like, I
too.
don't want the shot, like the big ass tetanus shot. I don't want that. Like that's rabies. Like, nah, dog. But like, oh god, just animals in general are just so fascinating.
Oh yeah, definitely.
How do
And
you
we
feel
still-
about zoos?
About what?
Zoos, like, do you think they're ethical or do you think they're unethical?
Oh, I don't know, man. That's tough. I mean,
Because I enjoy going to them, but also I'm like, I kind of feel
Feel bad for the
grimy.
animal,
Yeah,
yeah.
like it doesn't feel right that they should be trapped here for my entertainment. But
yeah,
You are also preserving the animal.
true.
yeah. I don't know.
There's such a flip side of the coin.
Yeah,
I think.
I try to understand both sides of
Mhm.
these things, and like we have SeaWorld here, in
Yeah.
Florida, and I haven't been there in a very very long time, and I won't go, just because I think the things they do probably aren't really cool, but
Right.
some of the things are. I mean, if
If they're treating the animals well, it's a different story, I guess.
Yeah, or if the animal maybe was injured and it has no other choice of life but to be there because it can't live on its own, maybe. But it's hard. It's hard to say because you never really get the full story, and
Yeah.
everybody that's pushing the narrative is pushing a one-sided narrative. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Right. I
it's
mean,
hard to make a
SeaWorld
decision.
definitely the Blackfin
Shamu.
documentary like definitely opened a lot of people's eyes to like the orca side of stuff. Like before people probably didn't think of much of like, oh, how did they get these orcas? Well,
Yeah,
they had to get them from somewhere, and
Yeah.
they stole them right out of the ocean.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
exactly.
that's the wild part
And
too.
like I seen Tolkien in person before,
Yeah,
he passed, and like when I was a kid and I seen him, I didn't realize that he was potentially a depressed, upset maniac killer. Like I didn't think that when I was a kid. I'm like, look at Shamu and Tolkien, like that's
yeah,
crazy. But like as an adult, you look at it totally different. Like that was a wild animal who had no idea what was
Yeah, when I
happening.
see like the seals and the walruses do the shows and stuff, I'm like, okay, are they really enjoying this? Like, are
yeah.
they really?
Yeah, and like I've swam with dolphins too, and it's like, you know, that was probably a wild dolphin at one point, and now it doesn't even know what it would. It probably wouldn't be able to even survive on its own now.
Yeah.
Because
Sure.
now it's used to not having to hunt, so it probably doesn't even think about that nature.
I guess that question would be the equivalent to like, do you think demons are real? When we ask the paranormal investigators. It's like, yeah,
Yeah,
that's a pretty heavy loaded question.
It is a loaded question for sure.
yeah. I went to a place this past summer in Seattle, and I think it's the first like zoo environment that I've actually been to in many, many, many years, probably 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
And in that time, I've spent so much time around wild animals. I kind of know them, like if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
You can tell when an animal's in its environment and is happy. And when I went to this place, none of the animals looked happy, and I ended up
Yeah.
leaving just kind of sick to my stomach, and said, okay, I understand some of these animals are injured, and they have them here so that people can be educated and maybe want to protect them in the future. But there were a lot that just looked absolutely miserable, and it was a
Right.
hard thing to walk through. Just to me, it didn't feel right, it didn't seem right, and it didn't sit right with me. So
Yeah. Like
it's
look at
it's
the video of the foxes. It's a perfect example where it's like they were so jovial and like playing with each other and stuff, booping. And
yeah, for
then
sure.
you go like to a big cat enclosure at one of the zoos that's around
They're
here,
just
and
laying
they just
down
lay
and
there.
doing
They don't
nothing.
ever get up or walk around and do anything. And then sometimes you'll hear them yowl for hours, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me out.
they're like, that's not right. Like there cannot be any good to this.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe there
But
is.
you're right. There could be like it could be for its own benefit, which I mean, we don't get the full story. I wish we fucking did.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and a lot of animals nowadays, like they've grown up in that captivity environment, they don't even know
Yeah.
any different. So if
yeah.
you were to put them in the wild situation, they wouldn't even know what to do.
Yeah, they wouldn't be able to survive.
I mean, look at dogs and cats. Like they're domesticated. They've been from just years of, like just taking them out of their environment that they're natural to, and then crossbreeding, and then just everything that goes into domesticating animals in a sort where it's like, I guess you could technically domesticate anything, but like, can you really take the dog out the dog?
Yeah, yeah. Mm.
Well, this is
Dogs.
usually about the time we wrap up our shows. And so we want to thank you endlessly for coming out and talking to us. We appreciate it very much. It's definitely, I hope everyone enjoyed the, change of pace for our show and kind of
Yeah. Well,
exploring a different side of the
Yeah,
wild.
I would definitely love to have you come back on, after we go through like a long list of people that we have to have return to, just to like pick your brain some more about, like even like more in depth about like what are good cameras to use and things like that,
Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Who knows, having you on here might interest someone in taking up animal photography. So it's always a positive outlet, or just photography in general. So,
Or
and
just,
I do
or
know
just,
you do
just
a
go
lot of
outside.
courses and stuff.
Yeah,
so
just go outside. Like
Yeah.
it's so worth it.
Yeah, just go
get
outside.
outside.
Yeah, definitely.
Enjoy
Well,
nature.
I appreciate you having me. It's been fun.
Yeah, Mark Smith, photography. If you go on YouTube, you
All
can
the links
find
are
him
down
at Mark
below.
Smith. Yep. I'll
Yeah.
say, please, everybody that watches this after the fact too, like go subscribe, go check out all of these beautiful shots. There is a lot of awesome videos and photos out here. Like,
Thanks.
I'll say you make me want to be a better photographer. That's for sure.
That's good. That's the whole point, to get you encouraged to do that kind of thing and go
Yeah,
outside.
like it's not discouraging whatsoever. It's one of those where it's like, oh, I see the level I'm getting to. Like I'm getting there.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, with that being said, folks, make sure you go subscribe to Mark and all of his pages. Check out all of his beautiful work. And remember, folks, keep your ears and eyes open for what really goes.
Bump in the night. Peace.